Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education Master of Science in Education, Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology, also known as DALET, virtual webinar. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Presenting today, we have Professor and Program Lead, Dr. James Diamond, and we also have our student speaker, Harmina Modgill. At this time, my colleague Tyrene Maddox from the Office of Admissions will also introduce herself and take it from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Sion. My name is Tyrene Maddox, and I am the Admissions Coordinator for School of Education, and DALET is one of my programs. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. Also, please take this time to make sure that your mic is on mute and your video is off. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your question in the chat box, and Dr. Diamond and I, along with Sion, will read and answer your questions. Next, I'd like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Diamond will go over information on the DALET program. We also have a student speaker today, and she will go over her experience in the program as well. Lastly, we'll wrap it up with our admissions requirements. We'll go over some financial aid information and certainly leave the floor open for questions at the very end. So just to start, some quick facts about Johns Hopkins University School of Education. Johns Hopkins School of Education is one of 9 schools at the Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our very own school in 2007. We are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. SOE also has collaborative partnerships with Urban Teachers and Teach for America. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,465 enrolled students. That was fall of 2019, and 30 plus programs offered on campus and online. In addition, we have approximately 22,000 alumni. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. James Diamond. Dr. Diamond is the faculty lead for DALET. Dr. Diamond has a BA and an EDM from Boston University and a PhD from New York University. He is a researcher in the field of digital media and learning, focused on the use of educational games to enrich K-12 learning and teaching for students and teachers. He's also experienced in educational research, design, and evaluation. And some of his areas of interest include K-12 history, social studies, and civics education, STEM education, computational thinking, and disciplinary literacy. There was research funded by the National Science Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, HASTIC Digital Media and Learning Initiative, the Gates Foundation, and the Robin Hood Learning and Technology Fund. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our lead speaker today, Dr. James Diamond.
Thanks, Tyrene. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Hi, everyone. Tyrene, Sian, thank you very much for that introduction. You've heard who I am. My name is Jim Diamond. I am the faculty lead for the Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology program here in the Hopkins School of Education. On behalf of my colleagues in the program, I want to thank you very much for taking some time today to learn more about the program. I'm excited every time I do this. I'm excited to know that there are a fair number of people in the world who are interested in our field and who are excited, I think, by some of the same ideas that get me excited and share some of the passions that I do for the role of technology in the very broad field of education. So welcome. I think before we dive a little bit into the program, I will state the obvious and say this is a pretty remarkable time in history to be considering doing graduate work in educational technology. As we all know, much of the world went through a hurried migration from face-to-face learning to online learning, in some cases almost literally overnight. We've heard reports and have evidence at this point from many, many areas of differing levels of success for those migrations, right? Some of which have had to do with districts, states, countries, technology infrastructure, whether they had access to tools, whether their students had access to the internet in order to be able to engage in online learning, whether their staff and teachers were well prepared to teach online. Many teachers are often not trained formally to teach online. And it obviously was not just in the K-12 space, right? And across the adult education space as well. People had to undergo many, many changes very quickly. Presumably at some point, the world will return to school buildings, to buildings. But I think it's fair to say that we probably will never go back to the world that existed before COVID in the area of educational technology. I find that exciting. I find it daunting. I find it to be filled with challenges and to be filled with questions about the types of pedagogies that people in the K-12 and adult education space need to be prepared to enact. I find it exciting to think about how we can prepare educators, not just for the next year, not just for the next 5 years, but for the next 25, 30 years, right? What changes do we anticipate coming in formal and informal education, and the role of technologies in those spaces, and how do we prepare our students to be lifelong learners in this space, and to continue to grow and learn, and in some cases reinvent themselves, as many educators are doing right now. So again, I think it's a very exciting and a very challenging time, and I am very pleased to be able to participate in your thinking about pursuing graduate work in this field. Okay, so let's get started. Tyreen explained, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program. We'll give you a high-level overview. I will endeavor to be as informative as I can. There's certainly plenty of information online. My experience is that the best parts of these webinars are often at the end. We do have the benefit of a student, of a current student in the program. Harmina Maudgill is here and has graciously offered her time to speak with you a bit about her experiences. And I think it is great for those of you who are thinking about this program and other programs to have an opportunity to talk with a student who's currently engaged in this work. Okay, so quickly, DALET is a completely online program, meaning all courses are offered online, obviously, via the Blackboard learning management system. Most of our courses are asynchronous, meaning that you take courses essentially on your own time. There are no formal expectations or regular expectations about being in a particular place and in a particular place at a certain time. It does vary course by course. Some courses do have synchronous expectations periodically, but for the most part, it is a asynchronous program. We offer a Master's of Science in Education in Digital Age Learning and Educational Technology. It's a 36 credit or 12 course graduate program. We also offer a certificate in Leadership and Technology Education, which is a 15 credit certificate or 5 courses. Most of our students graduate in 2 years. It's rare. We do have some students who in theory could complete their program in 1 year. I'm not sure that I've had it happen since I've been here. Most of our students are working professionals and tend to take 1 or 2 courses per term, spring, summer, and fall, as you can see. Okay, next slide, please. So our student body really brings in people from many, many fields and many professions, as you might imagine. The educational technology field is incredibly broad. We do have the majority of our students, so 60 to 70% at any time, are in the K-12 space. We do have educators in, so when we say K-16, we're also including undergraduate education as well. But the majority of our students are either classroom teachers, former classroom teachers, school leaders, or district, and even in some cases, state leaders who are pursuing a graduate degree or a certificate. As I said, we do have students who work in higher education, either as faculty members in their own institutions, as instructional designers, as instructional technologists, and sometimes people in the information technology space, in spaces in higher ed. We also have a fair number of students who come from industry, profit and nonprofit. We have students who work on their own as educational consultants or as members of small consultancies. And then I should have had 2 bullet points here. We have students working in the online education space. And I think it's also worth adding that we have students who are working in the educational multimedia production space, right? So that could be an industry, that could be for publishing companies, something like Scholastic, for example, or it could be for an organization like WGBH or WNET, right? One of these large public television education providers. Okay, next slide, please. We have, at any given time, we have between 70 and 80 students. This number may be from last year or this year, I can't remember. But that's typically about right. We're about 70, between 70 and 80 graduate students at any given time between the certificate and the degree program. Most of our students are in the degree program. And as you can see, the large majority of our students are taking courses part-time. As I noted, it tends to be quite rare that we have students taking courses full-time. Similar to the overall makeup of the School of Education, most of our students are women, and the average age tends to be mid-30s. That's ticking up a little bit, but that's about right, mid-30s. Okay, next slide, please. Students come from, as you can see here, often clustered along the eastern seaboard, and then on the West Coast as well, and I think students are distributed throughout the country. Actually, at this point, we have some students from Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. So this does change a little bit from year to year. And you can see we also have students, quite a number of international students, actually. So we have DALET students throughout time zones. And this really does go back to what I was saying earlier about the program being primarily asynchronous, right? We have students all over the world. It's very difficult to bring people together consistently at the same time. So most of our courses are asynchronous. Next slide, please. Okay, I noted that the program is on Blackboard. So Blackboard is the learning management system. You can think of it as your portal, right? All of your courses are housed in Blackboard. Most of your program communications will come through Blackboard. So in a way, Blackboard is a virtual college or school building. Everything is housed in there. It's not necessarily the most attractive school building, but it is a functional one, and all of our courses are offered there. Classes are typically broken up, I will say, into different modalities. So you have, in any given course, you will have some video lectures, typically asynchronous. Sometimes they are synchronous. Sometimes you actually will be asked to attend synchronous lectures. Interactive activities, so meaning that courses do have activities that you will be engaging with via some app, that's linked in Blackboard or within Blackboard itself. You'll be engaged in lots of discussion via discussion boards, via apps like Flipgrid or VoiceThread, or any number of other apps at this point in which people are able to engage in asynchronous face-to-face discussion via video chat. Zoom, obviously, increasingly so. There's about an even split across the program between projects being done individually and projects being done as members of a team. And really, it varies within courses. Some courses are much more in the direction of students working together collaboratively around design projects. Some courses, for example, technology and the science of learning, their students are working together, but not quite as intensively as they are on design projects. Okay, next slide, please. I'll talk a little bit more about some specific courses, but here you just have a few example course titles. You can see all of the courses on the program page through the School of Education. If you do not have access, you should have access to the student handbook through the School of Education's program page. If you don't, you can send me an email and I will send you the student handbook. And that includes the full course descriptions for all of our courses, along with links to current syllabi so that you can have a look and see what the most current syllabi in any event, so that you can have a look and see what's going on in courses. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, our faculty come from different areas. So in my introduction, you saw that I, for many years, have been working in the digital media and learning space. For most of my career, before I got here to Hopkins, I worked for a big nonprofit research and development organization called the Education Development Center. And there I led research projects and I led development projects, specifically in the area of K-12 technology integration, right? So I've always been, and I am a former elementary science teacher, I should say. So for a long time, I have been interested in understanding and working with teachers to think about how to integrate technology meaningfully, right? How learning from teachers, how they think about these tools, how they understand tools supporting their learning objectives, how they understand their students' needs with respect to using these technologies. And then either engaging in studies to see what happens when certain programs or certain technologies are put into place, or in some cases actually creating apps that have been used in the classroom. Dr. Chris Devers, another full-time faculty member in the program, has worked in higher education for a long time. His area of expertise is in the learning sciences and cognitive science. So Dr. Devers' research is really specifically in the area of learning how human beings, when engaged with multimedia materials, learn, right? So coming from an information processing perspective and thinking about short-term memory and working memory and long-term memory, and trying to understand something about how the design of materials can help people retain information and apply it in new situations. Our adjunct instructors, many of them are currently in the K-12 system, either as school principals or assistant principals. We also have instructional designers, a number of instructional designers teaching in the program, as well as 2 or 3 at this point, instructors who work in different agencies within the US federal government. Okay, next slide, please. So students from DALET really do come, as I've noted, from a lot of different fields. Most of them are in K-12. And in fact, most of those who are in K-12 stay in K-12, at least in the first several years that I've been in contact with students after they graduate from the program. We do have some number of teachers who come in who are beginning to think about leaving the classroom and either staying in school systems, but perhaps moving into leadership roles or different areas, different offices within a district. And then some teachers who are leaving formal education altogether and going into industry in the for-profit or nonprofit space. But as I say, for K-12 teachers, most of those who come in as K-12 teachers stay there after they leave the program. We have, however, many students in the adult education space, right, as you can see here. So as I've noted, faculty and staff and administrators in higher education, people who work in tech consulting, people who are already and have been working as instructional designers or learning experience designers at this point for many years. We have students who come out of the US military. As I noted earlier, students who come in from media production, but who also go out into media production and similarly into the educational game development space. And we've had one or two students who've left us to go into commercial game development. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the advantages of DALET: it is fully online, and it for a long time, this isn't completely true anymore, but for a long time, it certainly did set the program apart. It was an early, exclusively online educational technology program, which students who are located in different parts of the country and world and who are working in different industries find tremendously helpful. And one of the things about being online for so long is that there's a significant amount of expertise in developing courses for the online space and in teaching courses in the online space. If any of you have not taught online before, who have never learned online before, but maybe just had to go through a crash course in it, I think you probably have some appreciation for the differences between strictly online education and face-to-face education. And this program has quite a bit of internal expertise in that area. The curriculum is what you learn in our courses is widely applicable, right? You are learning foundational theories in the learning sciences. You are learning foundational theories about human learning and human development. You are taking courses that are largely design oriented and introducing you to principles of design thinking, introducing you to models and frameworks of instructional design, and giving you opportunities to apply those in your current professional context, right? So to go back to what I was saying earlier, when courses tend to be collaborative and project heavy, they are often pushing you to apply the learning that you are doing in your current professional context. Now, sometimes they may push you to think outside of your current professional context as well. And that is contributing to your overall growth as a learner and as a professional, somebody who can take what they're learning in this program and apply that in many different spaces. As I noted, our faculty really do come from quite a wide background. If you have a look at the student handbook, you'll be able to read fairly detailed bios on all of the instructors in the program to get a sense of where people are coming from. And as I've noted, there's a strong focus on K-12, increasingly in blended and hybrid now, and I imagine in the future, and for more traditional face-to-face education as well. Okay, next, please. Okay, so we have this here. This is just to give you an example. This would be a student, a fictional student who is taking 2 courses a term. You can see that this student would be completed in 2 years, right? By taking 2 courses a term. Technology and the Science of Learning is the program's foundational seminar. So for those of you who do wind up attending the program, that would be one of the first courses you take in the program. If you take one course a semester, that would be your first, or if you take 2 courses in a semester or more, that would be among one of those. And then you will work with your advisor to begin to think about the sequence in which you want to take courses, depending on what you're doing. I will say that the curriculum is slightly in flux at the moment, and depending on if you do come and when you come, the program will actually be creating a tighter mandated sequence. So by that, I mean that we currently only have one this foundational course, Tech and the Science of Learning, that I just explained, and that will probably change to 4 in the next year to year and a half. So if you were taking 2 courses a term, essentially your first 2 terms would basically be accounted for by mandate of the curriculum, and then you would work with your advisor to begin thinking about taking elective courses in the program, in DALET or in other programs in the school. So that is a change you might see over time, depending on when you attend. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I want to introduce Harmeena, and again, I want to express my gratitude to her for taking the time to be with us today. I'm excited to hear from her, and I'm especially excited about us having the opportunity to talk with all of you a bit more toward the end of the webinar. So Harmeena, take it away.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Diamond. As you know, my name is Harmeena, and I remember attending a very similar webinar not too long ago. And I joined the DALET program in the fall of 2019, and currently I'm about halfway through the program. And I can say that this program truly has been life-changing for me. I've always considered myself as not very tech savvy, but within a few months of the program, I was absolutely amazed with, I was just so impressed with the potential of educational technology and the power it has to energize and personalize learning for students. Just a little bit about me. I have about 12 years of experience teaching high school social studies and English. And then I left teaching a few years ago with the arrival of my kids. So the DALET program for me is really helping me to launch my knowledge and skills to be able to maneuver with confidence when I go back to the classroom. Each and every course is comprehensive, enriching, and rigorous. The discussion boards allow for a deep examination of concepts, and all assignments and projects are designed to apply what we are learning and explore a variety of technology tools. The professors and instructors have a wealth of knowledge and experience in using technology for education and in designing courses for us by presenting us with impactful videos, purposeful presentations, and papers from the best researchers in education and other fields. Finally, I've enjoyed getting to know my peers through group work and discussions that take place either over Zoom or on discussion boards. Initially, I thought I would feel very isolated in my online program, but it's been a pleasant surprise to discover that friendships can be made even though we're all in different locations. Finally, I chose Johns Hopkins after going through programs at other schools, and I just felt that Hopkins offered the most comprehensive program with courses in designing, cultural responsiveness, gaming, media, and just a whole range of topics. Also, because it is fully online, you're able to engage at your own convenience, and that's been especially helpful during this pandemic. Finally, I think what I admire most about this program is that not only are we learning about teaching with technology, but we also get to experience it. From our vantage point as DALET students, we can observe our instructors expertly modeling the best practices in teaching with technology. So overall, I've had an extremely positive experience in the program, and hopefully you all will also be able to experience the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmina. And then also thank you, Dr. Diamond, for such a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So now we are going to continue by going over the application requirements. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our website. The application fee is $80. You will need a current resume or CV, 2 letters of recommendation. If you're unable to have 1 academic letter of recommendation, we will accept 2 professional letters of recommendation. 500-word essay must be uploaded. And please visit our website on the admissions webpage to learn more about the essay portion of the application. And lastly, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. Again, keep in mind this is from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. And please note that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are currently experiencing heavy delays in mail received from the U.S. Postal Service and some private mail service carriers. So please order your transcripts as early as possible, especially if your school only mails paper transcripts. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process if you're an international student. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score. And if your degree was completed outside of the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. And additional information can be found on our website. And for the tuition for 2020-2021 academic school year is $882 per credit for online courses and a $15 per credit technology fee. This excludes textbook, course materials, graduation fee, and registration fee. Please note, additional fees apply and are charged separately from tuition. We encourage you to view our tuition and fees page on our website for the most up-to-date information about our tuition and fees. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. And also, we do offer a very limited number of partial need-based scholarship, and that application deadline for the scholarship is April 1st. Again, please visit our website if you have any questions relating to financial aid. And here are some important contact information. If you have any questions relating to your application, please feel free to contact Tyree Maddox, admissions coordinator, and here is her email and phone number. And also any program-related questions, please contact Liesl McNeil, senior academic program coordinator, and here is her contact information. Thank you for attending the DALET virtual webinar. At this time, Dr. Diamond, Tyreen, and I would like to open up the floor for questions. The first question I received from someone is, to what standard is the program aligned, Dr. Diamond?
The program is currently aligned to two organizations. So the first is ISTE, the International Society for Technology in Education, which is a rather large, as the title suggests, international organization of educators and educational technology developers. ISTE has several sets of standards. So they have a set of standards for educators, they have a set of standards for coaches, they have a set of standards for leaders. So our program is currently aligned, by which I mean our program learning objectives are currently aligned to the standards of ISTE, and that alignment goes all the way down, right? So ultimately, all course learning objectives are ultimately aligned to those standards as well. The program is secondarily aligned to the standards of another organization called AECT, which is the Association of Educational communication and technology. I think I've got that right. Another large organization with a national and international membership. AECT tends to be more focused on instructional designers. So a larger makeup of those who are members of that organization will identify as instructional designers or instructional technologists. Those standards tend to be more focused on design than what we see in the ISTE standards, and so are also very helpful as a way to guide our courses. So all of our courses are ultimately aligned to the standards of both those organizations.
All right, and it appears we have another question, excuse me, from Noel Lee. There was a course about emerging technology. What type of emerging technology do you cover? Is AI also one of them?
It is. So that's a good question. So obviously that course, the contents of that course will change with some frequency depending on what's emerging, right? That course currently is looking at artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and virtual reality as the main foci, along with social media and elements of personalized instruction. So I think what's important to keep in mind about a course like that is that it is a broad survey course, right? It's meant to have students look very broadly across the field of educational technology and look at instructional tools that are either just coming into being or may even be so nascent as to still be a few years down the road, although obviously in the case of AR and mixed reality at this point, they've been around for a while. And thinking about how those technologies are currently affecting or influencing different learning environments, not just their own, right? But in many, many different areas and outside of formal learning as well. What a course like Emerging Technologies is not, you would not come out of emerging technologies with a deep area of expertise. You wouldn't come out of any one course anyway, right? With deep expertise in artificial intelligence, for example, or virtual reality. So again, it's a landscape course.
Okay, and we have another question from Colin Levi. Are the courses and work focused on technology application in classrooms, or is there also work on technological equity and access?
Oh, what a great question. So the answer is both. And you know, I think we could have a really good conversation around that. Around how distinctions are being made around specific applications of technology in a classroom, as opposed to a focus on equity and access. I think equity and access certainly comes into the classroom as well, right? Whether in K-12 or in adult education, but looking beyond those spaces as well, right? So in courses, for example, like the leadership course, you might well have discussions about what it might mean and investigations of policies around how access is being facilitated, whether access is being facilitated, where are policies or certain conditions, either because of cultural norms or otherwise, limiting student access to technologies, limiting student access to the kinds of supports that are needed, limiting student access to the kinds of capital that's needed in order to learn with these technologies. The bulk of the program, if you were to reduce it, is going to be focused on application in specific contexts, right? So focusing on pedagogies, focusing on design for creating and implementing technologies in specific spaces. conversations about equity and access will occur across all of the courses, if that makes sense. In other words, it's not, sorry. In other words, it's, if I'm understanding this question, it's not a policy program, right? We're not necessarily a program that is designed to have students go through a curriculum and leave us with a graduate degree in policy administration or leadership in the area of educational technology. That's a program in which I can imagine a much stronger and consistent focus on issues related to equity and access. Whereas again, in the program as it's currently constituted, you're really looking more at application in particular environments. If that hasn't answered your question, feel free to ask it again, or feel free to get in touch with me and we can talk about it individually.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Diamond. Our next question is from Rob. From a time commitment standpoint, how many hours per week do you estimate a student spends in a 3-credit-hour class? And also, Hermina, feel free to jump in with this question as well.
So Hermina, do you want to take a crack at that?
Sure. I can say that I would say, in my opinion, the more time that you dedicate to the course, the more you will end up getting out of it. But just as a, in terms of time, I would say for each course, spending about 1 to 3 hours every day on the course is kind of expected. Every week there are assigned readings. There might be 5 or 6 papers totaling maybe between 80 and 100 pages to read. Then there's also time that you're going to dedicate spending, writing on the discussion boards. And then there might also be a weekly assignment. So on average, I would say that per course, you're looking at about 1 to 3 hours a night. And then maybe also time on the weekends too. So that would be my sort of estimate.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, and that sounds spot on in terms of what we typically hear from students. And we usually tell, I think it was Rob who was asking the question, we usually tell students to expect between 20 and 30 hours a week for 2 courses.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. So, yeah. It is very rigorous. It's very intense. It's very rigorous. You will be working very hard. But all I can say is that the more effort that you put into it, the more benefit you will get. So it does require a lot of time commitment, but I would say it's very worth it.
Thank you, Dr. Diamond or Hermina. The next question we have from Colin is, I am a Spanish teacher. Does this program have any courses or opportunities to look at the impact that technology can have on language proficiency or for non-native students?
So thank you for that question, Colin. The short answer is we do not have specific courses in the area of foreign language education. It is admittedly a shortcoming of the program that we're actually working on now. My hope is within the next year, we actually will have, year and a half at this point, we actually will be introducing a course, an elective course, that is specifically in the area of language learning and technology. So at the moment, we do not have courses dedicated specific, we don't have specific courses dedicated. Working with faculty, however, now it's not my area of expertise, it's not Chris Devers' area of expertise, but we do have other faculty in the School of Education who have expertise in the area of language learning. And we have helped a small number of students in the past to work with those faculty, by which I mean either taking one of their courses, or I had one student take an independent study. That depends on a faculty member's availability. So no, there's not a specific course in it yet. Yes, you could certainly work with the faculty to engage in some form of study that hopefully you would find helpful.
The next question we have is, it's a two-part question. The first one is, do I need to attend orientation before I start the program? The second part is, I just want to make sure the GRE is not required for this program. Dr. Diamond, I can answer the GRE part. The GRE is not a requirement for this program.
With respect to orientation, beginning summer of 2021, you will be required to attend a half-day orientation. We currently do not have a required orientation, but beginning summer 2021, you will be required to attend online, a half-day online orientation.
All right, it looks like there are no more questions. Thank you again for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. And thank you again to Dr. Diamond, Hermina, for joining us today and for such a wonderful presentation on DALET. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your interest, everyone. And again, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy to talk. And take care.